I'd like to call the meeting to order. If everyone could join the board in a moment of silence followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Board meetings are broadcasted live over Comcast Channel 28 and Verizon Fios Channel 32 and are live streamed on our district website as well as recorded for future broadcasting. We're here tonight for the budget work session number 4 and a public Q&A on the proposed final budget. At this time, I'll turn the meeting over to Mr. Steffi.
Thank you, Ms. Rivera. We have a brief presentation tonight. Just basically it's a little bit of a history lesson on where we were, where we're at, and where we hope to be in the future. So if you can go to the next slide, please. Just going back in time, 9 years, June 30th, 2012, district sat at a very good financial position. Our fund balance was approximately $31.5 million, total expenditures of $122.2 million, and our fund balance as a percentage of our total expenditures was almost 26%, which includes the assigned and unassigned fund balance. Fast forward 6 years, our fund balance had declined to $14.586 million on expenditures of $151,893,000. Our fund balance as a percentage of total expenditures was down to 9.6%. This was a reduction in fund balance of $16.884 million, or 54% in just 6 years. That averages out to a 9% hit per year in fund balance, which, as everybody knows, isn't sustainable. Fund balance as a percent of total expenditures was reduced by 63%. That 25.75 down to 9.6 was a 63% reduction. Next slide, please. Going forward from June 30th, 2018, as I just stated a minute ago, our fund balance was down to $14,586,000. Fast forwarding just 2 years, our fund balance is up to $16.716 million on total expenditures of $156,030,000. Our fund balance as a percent of total expenditures is up to 10.7%. Fund balance increased in the last 2 years of $2,129,000, or 15%. Fund balance as a percentage of total expenditures has increased by 11%. And fiscal year 2021 projects to an increase in fund balance for a third consecutive year after 6 consecutive operating decreases. As you know, the 6-year decrease had led to downgrades in our bond rating, and at our most recent bond refinancing, they removed the negative outlook. So the last couple years plus the positive outlook for this year is having a positive effect on our bond rating. So that's good news, and everybody in this room is to be commended for that. Budget points. Our budget outlook is better than previous years. As stated previously, after 6 consecutive years of fund balance draws of over $16 million, the district is projected to see increases for 3 consecutive years. There's a caveat, though. Although the district is better off financially, there are still serious fiscal issues facing the district. This year and the next 2 years, we're projected to use federal ESSER funds to continue maintain operations. A district, due to a higher mix of commercial real estate, is more susceptible to changes in the economy. When the economy does well, Ben Salem Township School District does very well. When there is an economic downturn, the school district feels it more so than other Bucks County districts due to our tax-based composition. Budget points continued. Next slide. Although the district is well positioned for the next 3 years, we must plan for life after ESSER funding. Tax-based growth will help. We've seen that in just the last 4 months. After that big decrease over the last couple years, we've seen several $1 million come back in our tax base just in the last 4 months, which is great news. Increase in our business privilege tax will help. We've seen a pretty good hit, but post-COVID, we anticipate that to come back to where it was. Increase in state funding benefits Ben Salem more so than other Pennsylvania districts due to underfunding for years and years. And any increase that the state in the last couple years, increases are run through the fair funding formula. Fair funding formula states that Ben Salem is seriously underfunded. So when there is additional state funding that comes out, we get a much larger proportionate share than most other districts in the state. So any increases in state funding helps us immeasurably. There is pending legislation regarding municipal bond changes. We are going to be discussing this at our next business affairs meeting, but there's something called the advanced refunding that several years ago was stricken from bond refinancing. There is legislation that could come back in the next couple months. And talking to our financial advisor, he said there is no current opposition from either side of the aisle on this reimplementation of advanced refundings. If that were to occur, we have quite a bit of money that could be refunded that could result in a couple $1 million in savings in tax payments and debt service payments. So that will be discussed next month. Interest income currently is at an all-time low. Interest rate changes can only benefit the district's interest income. And it would be great if we were able to lock in a refunding and then see rates go up, which would benefit two ways on lower interest payments and increased interest income. Tax increase needs to be considered for 22-23 and 23-24 to make up for the loss of ESSER funds. That is several years down the line in 24-25. Sure.
You just said it would be great if we could lock in that funding that you just talked about. How do we-
Refunding, yeah.
Why can't we do that?
Well, the legislation hasn't been approved. It's, from talking to our financial advisor, he's feeling that this is something that could happen as quickly as August or September. And we want to talk about a parameters resolution, because when that does happen, it's going to flood the market. It takes time to get a bond issued together.
Yes.
So we'd like to pre-plan and have all that work done ahead of time. So if and when that legislation does get approved, we're first in line before the market gets flooded.
So if we talk to our legislators, legislators, that might help.
Yeah, this is on the federal level, so I guess that's Mr. Fitzpatrick then.
Yes. Yes.
So, sure. Go up. We're 63 million at 162,948. Our 2021 budget was 159,451. That's a 3.496 million increase, or 2.91% or 2.19%. What are the major budget cost increases? Special education, charter school tuition, pension, and new positions. Next several slides are the positions that are proposed to be added to the proposed final budget. It's all these positions were included in the 2028 that the board approved earlier this month. New teaching positions at the high school include 2 English teachers, a math teacher, social studies teacher, and a special ed life skills teacher. And there is also a special ed autistic support teacher at the elementary level. In the Human Resources Department, there's an HR specialist. Facilities and Transportation Department, there would be a supervisor of operations and transportation. Student Services Department would be a social worker. Business Department, we would add a purchasing specialist. And in our support services, instructional staff, there would be a supervisor of innovation and instructional technology, a district-wide athletic director and MTSS coordinator, DEI position, and a bilingual secretary. I do want to add, even with the addition of all these positions, our staffing levels will still be lower than they were several years ago. And we do have more students, several hundreds more students than back in 2016, 2017.
Quick question. The mental health aspect has been part of our conversations. And I think we've talked about this. I just want to be clear that we hired an extra counselor at the high school and we're maintaining that position, right?
That's correct.
Okay. Is that the only addition we've made? Can you just go over that? Because I know that that's something that we get questions about.
I can. Thank you for the question. You're correct about the high school counselor, and that position is accounted for in this budget. A new position presented and accounted for is an additional social worker. And also our arrangement with Southeast Council of Pennsylvania provides 6, Brian? Additional 6 counselors spread out throughout the district with the all day, every day counseling support for our students at our Title I elementary schools.
Can
Okay,
I
thank you.
ask, I'm sorry, Rachel, does that answer your question? It's part of the same. So the guidance counselor was already in the budget, but we did that as a temporary hire because we had a hiring freeze. So you're referencing that temporary hire that was made. I know there's a person.
That's currently a long-term sub, correct.
Okay. So this if the public's looking at increased positions, that's currently a long-term sub that now would go to an additional hire, a permanent.
Yes, correct.
Right? Okay. Then some time ago, we approved a temporary bilingual instructional aide. I don't see that here. We didn't make that hire, unfortunately, for a number of reasons, but I don't see that here. And you've got a bilingual secretary that is different from an instructional aide, right? And because the instructional assistant, we did that, Ms. Benitez, that was March, February, something like that. We'd have to go back. I don't remember, but
Yes, it was some time.
it was some time ago. Right, the hire didn't happen, but it was approved by the board as a temporary, at the same time as a guidance counselor. Didn't happen, and furthermore, we had discussed making it not just 1, but 3. And I don't see any of that.
I believe,
Those positions, so the positions that I've listed are positions that were added subsequent to the initial budget presentation in January. So the aide position and the guidance counselor were already built into the January budget presentation.
Okay, I just think for clarity for the public, those 2 should be on this list because they are additions, right? They're new staff because they were only temporarily approved. And then that goes to the 2 more instructional aides that were discussed, I don't know, for a while. Mrs. Leon's shaking her head. She recalls this from instructional affairs. I believe it went to personnel as well. So there's 2 more out there. And we discussed it recently in equity as well.
Well,
So,
we'll have to revisit that. I don't believe I have 3 in there, to be honest with you.
I know you don't. That's why I'm bringing it up.
Yeah.
And I wasn't sure about the 1 either, but I do recall you mentioning that 1 before.
We do have the guidance counselor and an instructional aide in
A
there.
bilingual instructional aide.
Well,
No, that's important.
I mean, right now,
I mean, not from a cost perspective, it's the same cost.
I have it as
Okay.
because there's no
cost differential.
differential right now on
Okay.
our salary schedule.
Right.
So
But so there's 2 more. And those would not be a substantial increase in budget because unfortunately those folks are not
correct.
well paid, but
No.
it would be there.
If that's something that the board would like, we can add those 2 bilingual instructional aides as well. Okay.
John, I was going to ask you, attrition, with the added payroll, with attrition, was it the payroll expense going to go up or just to stay about the same, did you say, or
No, it's going to go up.
it's going to go?
But there was attritional savings that have already been reflected in the
Okay,
proposed final.
okay, thank you.
I would like to see those two positions Stephanie's referring to added, please.
Okay. I mean, right now, I've only seen yeses nodded, so from what I'm seeing, unless I hear any noes, we will add that to the final budget.
Right. And I believe the discussion, those would be for the high school.
Okay.
I suppose instructional cabinet could do otherwise, but that was the initial discussion. But just getting them on the books, what's important, because there's no cost differential between middle school, high school, anything
That's
like.
correct.
Okay.
Any other questions on there? Okay. How much did our revenues go up? We were at 154, 180, 778. Our proposed budget, proposed final has revenues of $158,759,758, an increase of just under $4.6 million, or just under 3%. Next slide. How does the Ben Salem median tax bill compare with the rest of the county? I'm happy to say that Ben Salem has the second lowest median tax bill in the county behind Bristol Borough. When I say median tax bill, that's a function of the median assessment as well as the millage rate. You can see there's some when you go further on, you'll see some districts have very, very low millage rates, but they have very high average assessed values or median assessed values. So there's not a correlation between there's not a direct correlation between the tax bill and the millage rate, which is what we'd like to show. Next slide was, how does Ben Salem's millage rate compare with the rest of the county? We have the sixth highest, or we're right towards the middle. There's 13 districts. We're number 6, so we're slightly above average, which is to be expected when we have one of the lower assessed values, median assessed values. Next slide. Does the budget include a tax increase? No. Next slide. Next slide just shows our district in comparison with the rest of the Bucks County school districts in terms of median assessed values and millage rates. You can see in terms of median assessed value, Bristol Borough is the lowest, followed by Bristol Township. You can see Ben Salem is number 4. And at the top, you can see the wealthier districts, New Hope, Solebury, Council Rock, and Central Bucks. In terms of millage rates, the districts that have the highest assessed value typically have the lowest millage rates. You can see New Hope, Solebury, highest median assessed value, lowest millage rate in the county. It's interesting to note, though, that when you multiply their total assessments by their millage rate, they have the highest median tax bill in the county. So even though they have the lowest millage rate, they have the highest median tax bill in the county due to their high assessed values. And you can just peruse the millage rates. You can see we're number 6 from the top, which I think speaks well for our district, because you can see we're number 4 from the bottom in terms of median assessed value. You can see some of the districts that are higher than us as far as millage rates. Council Rock, Neshaminy is higher than us. Quakertown, Pennsbury, all districts with much higher median assessed values. So I think that speaks well to our district in terms of management of our funds. And here is just a graphical representation of the median assessed values. You can see the low Bristol Borough, and you can see us shaded in orange. So we're down towards that bottom third. Next slide, please. Millage rates, you can see we're towards the middle, a little bit above the middle as far as our millage rate at 164.9508. And you can see Morrisville being the highest and New Hope, Solebury being the lowest. And again, here is the median tax bill by school district. You can see Bristol Borough, the lowest by far at $2,587. Ben Salem is the second lowest median tax bill in all of Bucks County at $3,761. And again, you can see the high of New Hope Solebury. They have the lowest millage rate, but they also have the highest median tax bill. Any questions on any of these graphs?
No question. I just wanted to note for the public that, you got a school district here like Morrisville, which is struggling every year to keep its doors open. And it's just interesting that they fall in the middle of this graph, because even though this graph makes it look like a certain amount, like if you're a certain amount over, these people are getting charged a certain amount of money, and it's never enough money, except New Hope Solebury is absolutely fine. They don't need any more. Not that I would advocate against getting more money for public ed, but so I just don't want people to get confused by looking at this and thinking that just because we fall in a certain place means that therefore that should mean something. It means something different for every one of these school districts, and it looks different in every one of these school districts.
Yeah, I agree. There is a different function for every district, and you're right. Morrisville, you see that 4158, and they are struggling, and they do have one of the highest millage rates in the county, and you can see that there is a funding problem in Pennsylvania as far as funding goes, in that if you have a wealthy school district, you're going to be able to spend a lot on your schools, and if you don't, you're not able to. And I think it does speak well to Ben Salem Township School District, though, that we do have the second lowest median tax bill, and we're able to provide for our kids. So, next slide, please. Next slide. I just thought we'd do a little bit more history, and we've done a lot of things over the last several years, I think, that are good, that we should recognize and be reminded of. So I just put together a list of capital and construction fund projects purchases that we've done in 1819, 1920, and 2021. So back in 2018, 2019, we did the Struble roof replacement for over $1.7 million. We did district-wide remote door access, where all the schools, all of our buildings now have the remote access through the card readers. We replaced the Schaefer fire alarm system. We did various elementary school carpet replacements. We did the Faust fire alarm replacement. We purchased vehicles for our residency investigators to do the investigations. We renovated the high school soccer field, and we repaired the Cornwell sprinkler system. Next slide, please. In 1920, we did the secure vestibules project. We replaced Faust boiler. We put a new fire alarm system at VMC, purchased 31 new school buses. We replaced a number of the Z-Term lawnmowers for our grounds department, purchased a new high school weight room, new band uniforms, and new jazz band uniforms. And we put in a handicap ramp and additional parking at Valley. This current year, we did various paving projects throughout the district. We replaced Cornwell's rooftop units, carpet replacement at Valley. Board approved the district-wide school zone safety sign replacements. We purchased, in conjunction with the Kiwanis Club, new playground equipment for Cornwell's. Purchased a new track steer for our grounds department. We added some Z-turn mowers to our grounds department, and we had our maintenance building roof replaced. That was done through insurance, though. We have 4 projects that are currently in progress. The high school track replacement, which is scheduled to start the day after graduation. Currently, they're doing the high school stadium stair replacement. We've awarded the Cornwell's boiler replacement, and that project is moving along. And the Valley roof replacement, which is also scheduled to start as soon as school lets out. Next slide is just a snapshot of where we're at between our capital reserve and our construction bond. We have $8,287,460. we're going to spend $2,255,000 on the valley roof replacement, $398,000 on the Cornwells Elementary boiler replacement, $121,000 on the high school stairs replacement, and $616,000 on the high school track installation and relocation of field events. That brings our capital reserve and bond fund balance to approximately $4.9 million. And we have some pending capital expenditures. We're discussing the high school gym rooftop unit replacement, replacement of school vans, employee tracking software upgrade, and high school facade repairs. We're anticipating these projects to cost about $2.5 million, which would leave our capital reserve fund at about $2.5 million, give or take a few $100,000 either way. Budget unknowns. The proposed final does not include any increase in state funding. The governor's budget does include a substantial increase. I mean, a very, very large increase for Bensalem Township School District. We don't think that's anywhere near realistic or in the realm of possibility, but there is always the possibility of some type of increase. I think the governor's budget was millions or
15 million.
15 million for our district. If that happens, then we're good for the next, I don't know how many years.
But
Have a parade.
I was going to ask if you wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, none of this is gonna happen. It's so nice though. You're so cute when you say things like this.
I'm hearing there's a possibility of some type of increase.
Yeah, there might be an increase. I think if anything, we might get a little bit of an increase, but I think in terms of any actual legislation changes, I don't think that they're projected to happen this year. There's a lot of momentum for actually changing the special education costs for charter schools. That one's more likely to happen. That one will save a couple million, I think.
Yeah, 1.5.
1.5 for us.
So that would be great, but I don't think that's happening this year. Though we might have a slight, I don't know if it's a problem, it's good, it's bad, it's good and bad for different reasons, but if the legislature ends up passing 2 consecutive budgets, which they're talking about doing, that means that they're either going to have to build an increase in for next year for public ed, or we're going to be stuck with the same increase for 2 years, which has its pluses and minuses. But the charter school legislation could change calculations immediately if they do it. My understanding is it's not going to get done this year. But I maybe you hear differently.
Getting
I was actually spent the day in Harrisburg yesterday, and everything's very much in flux, conversational, caucus-centric, so you're not hearing a whole lot out. But the people that will share information share that there's 3 possibilities: an increase in basic ed subsidy, not to the level that the governor proposed, or charter school, cyber charter school calculation adjustment down to a flat rate, 9,500, which would save us money as well, or the special ed calculation for charter school students. So those 3 things are possibilities.
Yeah, any one of those things would be substantial, very substantial. I mean, we're talking, well, at least for the 2 charter schools, each one of those changes would result in 7-figure savings for our district. And the increase in state funding, like I said previously, benefits us proportionately more than most districts due to it being run through the fair funding formula. So that's the presentation on the Q&A. Any questions at this point?
I got one. So in the proposed new positions, right, you had majority of them listed, but we are reorganizing and having a second assistant to the superintendent, correct? Which would entail be a new position, a second one? Because we have one. I didn't see the second one listed anywhere.
That's on your agenda tonight. but
Correct,
It's
but
not
it's
listed
not
in the
in-
budget because it's not actually budget neutral. It's a $5,000 increase. So maybe
But it is a new position, right?
Yes.
it is, but it's not, it's a change in classification.
Yeah, I mean, it's not,
But it
No, the
affects the budget.
position's new.
technically it's a new position, but it's not a material because there's one going away and one coming back in. So it's really not material to our budget.
Well, when are we going to vote? I don't see anything on the agenda tonight, and this may be to your point, Mr. Price. We haven't voted on a reorganization yet.
Well, it's,
Let's finish budget and then we'll get into what we're gonna get into.
But I mean, isn't that kind of to the point? It is a new position, yet we haven't authorized a new position yet. It's just housekeeping. Just,
I was just
Well-
curious, because I saw
well,
the
we
rest
also haven't
on the
rescinded our
budget,
hiring.
and I didn't know what we were doing there.
And we, again, it's just housekeeping. I'm not concerned about any of it, but we haven't rescinded our hiring freeze either. If that requires a vote. I don't know if it
I
does.
don't know that anything was ever voted on related to a hiring freeze. It was made mention,
and we just hired all these you're putting all these positions in. If we didn't,
Well, that's the point. Then we may need to unfreeze it officially.
we should have
But you're
done
not-
that a long time ago if we had to do it. I mean, then
Well, there's a
these-
number of things we should have done a long time ago. I
Well, these
agree.
positions shouldn't be on the budget then if we,
That's correct. Yeah, I just don't know. I understand that, but it's proper procedure. Isn't that what you were getting at too, Mr. Price?
In a way, but I was just curious. I know we had all these other new positions listed, and I knew we were going in that direction, which is fine. It's just a matter of, procedure and housekeeping. Like Ms. Fernandez says, it's nothing against it. It's just, if it's a new position,
Okay.
to be transparent, it's a new position. I mean, I know it doesn't unilaterally affect the budget that much, but we're changing titles, and it's technically a new position.
Okay. What I could do, next or the final budget, I'll put all the positions, even the guidance counselor, and the instructional aides, I'll put that new position in. But I'll also include the positions that were, I guess, dissolved. There's a few positions that were dissolved. So we'll get together a comprehensive list of added and deleted positions. So good point.
And does the board have to vote on a new, because we have an organizational chart, we would have to vote on that as well, correct?
eventually, one thing doesn't have to necessarily come before the other. There's no prescribed order. We've, as a district, done things in no particular order. You don't have to. I'll defer to our solicitor.
Well, wouldn't we have to approve job descriptions before we put them in the org chart?
For example?
And that's, one's before you tonight, one was before, sure, yep. Yeah, exactly.
Well, you would
That's
do it
my only question, yeah.
simultaneously.
Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you, everybody. Good job, everybody.
thank you. We'll move into public comment. Do we have any public comments, Mrs. Harder?
So, but I believe the whole board has received, there's one emailed comment or question, I guess, because tonight is public questions and answers. Are you asking me to read it?
Sure, if you,
We all got it.
we did,
And it's gonna
but
be
I'm
posted.
asking Mrs. Harder
Yeah.
to read it so the public can hear it.
Okay. It's usually public comment. Tonight is public questions and answers. And that's why I'm asking if I should read it, because we are supposed to answer tonight.
Yep. Okay.
Which
Yep.
one is this?
That's why I'm asking for it to be read, because it is a question in regards to the agenda tonight, and the public needs to know the question so we can
Yeah,
answer.
please read it, please.
So if you would be so kind, Mrs. Harder?
Thank you, Susan.
It's from a Susan Now, N-A-U. And it says, "Good afternoon. I will be returning tonight to," no, wait a minute. This is Mrs. Fernandez.
I will be happy to read my comment,
There
but
you
it's
go.
for the next meeting, not this one.
Right, I'm clicked on yours, so. Susan Now from Brookwood Drive, Ben Salem. Regarding the new positions, did we not eliminate the purchasing agent, maintenance, and a transportation manager a couple years ago because we could do without them? Why are these positions being required now?
Also, just for the record, I don't think we do have that one. Mrs. Nicholas, do you? We don't have that. So. And it's about the purchasing agent?
Purchasing agent,
And the facilities superintendent, whatever we're going to call them.
Maintenance and transportation manager.
correct.
I can answer that question.
Sure.
So the original proposal was to eliminate the two positions and combine them into one. And that never occurred. We eliminated the two positions, but never combined them into that one position. So that was always the recommendation. As far as the purchasing, that was eliminated due to finances. I mean, our district was in dire financial straits. We eliminated teaching positions, we eliminated custodial, grounds positions, we eliminated positions across the board. And it's not that the district doesn't need that position, it was the finances at the time dictated that we take drastic steps, and that's what we did. I mean, a district of our size, I don't think there's a district of our size anywhere that I know of in the state that doesn't have a purchasing manager. And I think that position is sorely needed in our district, and it would help our operations immensely.
I think we've managed, in the interest of keeping our investment and resources connected to our kids, but it was 4 years ago that these things were eliminated, and we don't want to get to the point of diminishing returns related to our service and attention to these positions and functions.
I guess I should just ask this because I don't know the answer of, in the budget presentation, there's a $3.1 million increase from last budget to the one that's being proposed. Was it something like 3.1?
I think it was a little bit more than that.
Okay. And you said the major cost drivers were charter school, pensions, special ed costs, and new hires. What proportion of that increase, or what either proportion, percentage, or number, did all of our new hires account for?
I didn't add that up. I can get that information to you.
We should probably have that, because I don't know the cost of all of these hires together.
Okay.
Well, I would want the cost of these positions.
We'll give you all
Unless,
the
and
cost.
not if they're a direct replacement for someone who has left. But not all attritional savings and then put this together, not a net increase in personnel.
we'll
The
give-
cost of these specific positions.
We'll give you the cost, we'll give you that, and we'll
Okay.
give you the cost of the eliminated
right.
positions as well.
Okay, right, yeah, just not, and attritional savings. We should have all three of those, but
All right.
not just a net cost.
Okay.
Thank you to the community member for that question.
And the other thing, we are, like I said, even with these additional positions, we're staffed less than we were 4 years ago, even with the addition of these positions.
I believe that. For transparency, we need to be clear about what's costing, and we need to understand as we're voting for it.
Mrs. Harder, was that the last question?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Is there any more board discussion on it, on the presentation?
I have we vote on the final budget will be the June meeting, right? And so there's been a couple out in the public with the governor's change in capacity limits not happening until the end of this month, but will the actual budget meeting, the June meeting, will be open to the public and we will return to a regular, and we can have people in the audience because the capacity limitations are being rescinded.
I believe that the CDC guidelines and our own public health department would allow for that.
Do we? Okay, so I know there's a health and safety amendment in the regular action meeting tonight. We might need to look at that. Although that meeting will
Well,
occur
this
after the
is-
school year. So I just wanted to know
Yeah.
for people who want about the proposed budget.
I'm gonna say you're welcome to be with us. 100% capacity after next Monday.
Okay.
Our health and safety plan is really confined to school functions, right?
Right.
This is not considered a school function. This is
Okay.
I guess, a gathering.
Okay, so for members of the public, if you'd like to make a comment or question next month, then join us. There'll be chairs.
The board did not meet in executive session prior to this meeting. Upcoming board meetings, June 1st is Instructional Affairs Committee at 6 PM. June 8th is Personnel Committee at 6 PM. Also on June 8th is Policy Committee at 7 PM. June 9th is Business Facilities and Technology Committee at 6 PM. June 16th is the Public Relations and Outreach Committee at 6:30. June 17th is Diversity and Inclusion Committee at 7. June 23rd is the intent to adopt the final budget for the fiscal year of 2021-2022 at 6 PM. And also on June 23rd is the regular action meeting at 7:30. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So
So-
moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.